This is CBC Vancouver News.
After several scary, even fatal attacks on transit,
we're really angry. We're very frustrated.
a promise to keep riders safe,
Half of the buses, they don't have a safety glass barrier.
while drivers say they still feel vulnerable. Plus, 7 years after a public health emergency was declared, BC's toxic drug crisis grinds on.
My son had 7 overdoses in the last year before he finally passed away.
What will it take to stop the deaths? And punching against Parkinson's. We'll take you inside a new class in Delta. Good evening, thanks for joining us. I'm Michelle Ghoussoub. After several tragic weeks on transit and only hours after the latest incident on a bus, Metro Vancouver's bus operator promises to make public transit as safe as possible. The TransLink pledge comes after a string of violent attacks on buses or near transit hubs. Belle Puri has more on the promise.
Work has begun on rapid bus service south of the Fraser, but the increase in service is overshadowed by a recent increase in violence on the transit system.
I'm angry. We're really angry. We're very frustrated. I am bothered by these events.
On Tuesday night, just before 9:30, 17-year-old Ethan Besflug was stabbed and killed while riding a bus in Surrey. So far, no one has been arrested. 2 weeks ago, another transit rider who is recovering had his throat slashed while on a Surrey bus. A man has been charged in that case. TransLink says it's working with police and all levels of government to make the system safe.
Our transit police have already stepped up patrols in crime hotspots, and the forthcoming 24 community safety officers will allow our police to further focus their efforts on criminal activity.
The violence on transit isn't restricted to Surrey. In West Vancouver on Wednesday around 2 o'clock, a man got on an eastbound bus at Marine Drive and 20th Street and immediately began to harass passengers. When another passenger intervened, a fight broke out.
It seems like a lot of blood was going around, and fortunately the West Vancouver police arrived pretty quickly.
The union at Blue Bus is worried about the safety of its drivers.
Half of the buses, they don't have a safety glass barrier. We have some kind of plastic curtain shower, which is useless. Yeah, anyone can reach to the driver, anyone can do anything anytime.
The District of West Vancouver operates Blue Bus. It issued only a written statement. All appropriate steps were taken with respect to the driver, with the safety protocols developed to address this kind of incident being diligently followed. One man was arrested under the Mental Health Act and taken to hospital with minor cuts. West Vancouver police say they're not aware of injuries to anyone else. Meanwhile, in Vancouver, this morning, another disturbance on a bus. Police describe it as a violent incident but have released few details, other than it happened along East Hastings Street and Jackson Avenue on a rapid bus. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
Nearly 1 month has passed since the transit strike began in the eastern Fraser Valley. Workers have been asking the provincial government to step in. Today, Transportation Minister Rob Fleming says the government is hoping both sides will come back to the table.
Right now, we have offered mediation and neither party wishes to involve a mediator. I know that Minister Harry Bains has said that he is available at any time to listen to either party that wishes to involve his ministry on some of the tools that he has available to him.
The workers have been without a contract for 3 years. Among their demands, a 32% wage increase to put them in line with their counterparts in Metro Vancouver. The employer, First Transit, has offered a 16% increase over 5 years. Today marks 7 years since the province declared a public health emergency over the rising number of deadly drug overdoses. More than 470 people died in 2015, but last year almost 2,300 people were killed. As Renee Filipponi reports, it only seems to be getting worse.
You can take the protective cap off. It's a skill paramedics want more British Columbians to learn, how to administer the life-saving drug naloxone when someone is overdosing.
The numbers are showing that it's not getting any better. It's staggering to see the elevation in the amount of overdoses that we're seeing still.
And it's record numbers. In one day alone, in March, the BC Ambulance Service received 205 overdose calls. It's now averaging 120 calls a day.
At first it was just fentanyl that was on the street, but now we're seeing the fentanyl and it's mixed with a variety of other substances,
often making it much more toxic.
My son had 7 overdoses in the last year before he finally passed away. He was my partner. He was,
Alex DeBlotny says his 36-year-old son, Curtis, struggled with mental health issues. He self-medicated with illicit drugs, which killed him this past December.
So we're not only dealing with the death, but we're dealing with, the guilt of, did we do enough? We didn't do enough.
DeBlotny says the government is only taking half measures. He wants testing strips for toxic drugs more readily available.
Our loved ones and those who struggle.
Rallies were held across the province today with grieving families sharing their stories. It's a group that just keeps getting bigger every year.
Your child is more likely to die from fentanyl than falling off his bike.
Many here calling for more access to safe drugs now, including Jennifer Howard, whose son died of an overdose.
It's evident as we see people continue to die that we are lacking the services they need, and that's why we need a safe, regulated supply.
That sentiment echoed by drug users on Vancouver's downtown east side.
Disheartening, and it's hard because I walk down the street on a daily basis and I see people hunched over and you can't tell if they're alive or dead.
Where the community marks another year of this public health crisis. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
3 clubhouses belonging to the Hells Angels have now been seized by the province. This follows a long-running legal battle between the Outlaw Motorcycle Club and the BC government. The Public Safety Ministry tells CBC News locks have been changed at the clubhouses in East Vancouver, Nanaimo and Kelowna. A panel of judges overturned a 2020 BC Supreme Court ruling that allowed the Hells Angels to keep those properties. The justices ruled the properties would likely be used for criminal activity in the future. The province says each property's unique circumstances will determine its seizure and eventual sale. Stephen Bacon has been sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Nanaimo teen Michaela Chang 6 years ago. Bacon pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. He will not be eligible for parole for 20 years. Bacon killed 16-year-old Michaela Chang in 2017 and then fled Nanaimo. Search and rescue crews combed through ravines for clues to Michaela's whereabouts. Bacon was arrested in Ontario 2 years later and charged with her death in 2020. Vancouver police are hoping you can help identify a suspect of an alleged hate crime. A woman is accused of spitting on a stranger in a coffee shop on West 4th near Alma on February 26th, just before 11 p.m., and making racial comments after hearing the man speak Arabic. Police are now sharing photos and videos of the suspect.
So when she approached this group, they engaged in some friendly conversation. She asked the group what language they were speaking. When they responded with they spoke Arabic, she made a racial comment. She poured her coffee on the table and she left. She then came back at about 45 minutes later and spat in the victim's face.
The Canadian Arab Institute says anti-Arab hate has been on the rise in the country, and there is concern the population of mostly newcomers are underreporting hate crime incidents. BC First Nations are getting more help to deliver healthcare in their own communities. Jessica Chung reports on the new agreement between Ottawa and the First Nations Health Authority.
Today is an historic day.
Wade Grant with the First Nations Health Council says an Indigenous-led health authority is an essential part of reconciliation.
So many of our people, for so many generations, have been forced and faced with health care that was inhumane. And we continue to see, sometimes even today, the racism
It's been a decade since the federal government transferred control to the First Nation Health Authority to design, manage, and deliver healthcare to over 200 Indigenous communities in the province. Today, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced a 10-year renewal to the agreement, and it comes with $8.2 billion of federal funding over the next decade to help meet the unique healthcare needs of First Nations communities.
Things like more community-based approaches to healthcare, recognition of the intergenerational trauma that impacts well-being in your communities, innovative mental health and wellness care, work to continue to address those social determinants of health, and ensuring that as First Nations you can have access to culturally safe care on your land and in your language.
The Health Authority is the first of its kind in Canada. 5 other similar initiatives are underway in other provinces. Jessica Chung, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Prime Minister was also in Vancouver today celebrating Vaisakhi. Trudeau greeted volunteers and community members at the Khasa Diwan Society. The holiday marks the first day of the month of Vaisakhi. It's traditionally celebrated annually on the 13th of April and sometimes on the 14th, marking a celebration of the spring harvest. One Surrey high school was getting into the spirit of things, hosting its own Vaisakhi celebration. We spoke to students about the importance of the day. Take a look.
Celebrating Vaisakhi means the birth of Khalsa, and when Guru Gobind Singh Ji gave birth to the Panch Pyare, and he established the Khalsa Panth. And that means a lot to my community because that's how the Khalsa came as a group, and they came up with the 5 Ks and how their way of life is different from everyone else.
The Nagar Kirtan's a festival that happens in Vancouver and Surrey. People set up booths and provide food for everyone else. There's performances like Gadka, Bhangra. We all get together and we'll head out to the Nagar Kirtan each year. They usually have rides set up, so I'll take my little brother. Well, Vaisakhi is just not about dancing, or it's just not about dancing, wearing good clothes and just dressing out. I feel like it's more about like the religious perspective as well, because our 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, introduced the Singh and Kaur. Singh meaning brave and lion, and Kaur meaning princess, because back then women didn't have that many rights.
Some of the people staying at BC hotels this year are not paying guests, they're staff. One of Victoria's largest hotels says it's necessary because it's only housing some workers will find. The Hotel Grand Pacific can't find enough housekeepers, so they're hiring workers through the federal Temporary Foreign Workers Program, with an added incentive of providing affordable housing at the hotel. It's expected to be a busy summer for tourism, and the Hotel Grand Pacific would likely sell out, but it's forced to set aside a percentage of rooms for staff. It's a trend seen in many communities.
Seeing it all over the province, and this is not new, but this year it'll be worse than it's ever been before. This is not a good solution for them. They deserve a home with a kitchen, with a garden, or whatever that configuration may look like.
It's not clear how long the workers can stay in the hotel. As the city of Vancouver continues to remove tents and belongings from East Hastings Street, many people experiencing homelessness say they're left without adequate housing options and very little support. There are some critics pushing for the province to diversify its housing models, and as Janella Hamilton reports, including options with greater emphasis on social reintegration and recovery.
Cindin Purser moved to Vancouver about 2 years ago to escape an abusive relationship, leaving her job, her home, and eventually even her kids while she struggled to survive.
It took 7 different times with multiple different people just to get me on the BC housing list.
Without stable housing, she says it's been impossible to find a job. When she finally secured a unit in an SRO, the deplorable living conditions pushed her onto the street, where she felt safer.
Everyone is getting dragged back and back and back together.
This clinical psychologist says funneling people from all walks of life into a single building is counterproductive.
The culture that people are exposed to determines their behavior, their expectations.
Summers and his team at SFU worked with 500 people who struggled with complex needs like chronic mental health and addictions to reintegrate them across communities into homes of their choice with long-term peer support. His research pushes for recovery-oriented housing.
People who moved into housing that they chose where the other residents of the buildings were diverse. They were powerfully motivated by the possibility, and it's a possibility that many had shut out from their minds, that they could actually reconnect with employment. They could reconnect with their kids, with family members, with community.
The model was tested in 5 Canadian cities, and in BC, in the first year, Summers claims ER visits were reduced by 50% and involvement in the criminal justice system was down by more than 70%. He presented the findings to the province in 2021, but there was little interest. In a statement, the Ministry of Housing says the province takes a housing-first approach that is a proven international evidence-based model. Purser wants to see incentives for landlords and RVs and tiny homes used to help alleviate homelessness. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Coming up, how a group of seniors living with Parkinson's disease in Delta are working to redevelop their strength. That's next. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream. After a month of criticism, ridicule, and international media attention, Regina has pulled the plug on the rebrand of its tourism entity, Experience Regina. As Alexander Kwan tells us, there will also be an independent review into the botched rebrand.
This was supposed to be the energetic launch of a new way to welcome people to Regina. But less than a month after this video went online, marking the rebrand of the city's tourism organization to Experience Regina, that plan is now dead. The chair of the organization in charge of tourism, the Regina Exhibition Association Limited, held a press conference today.
The decision has been made to return to Tourism Regina's name and reactivate the website and social channels under the Tourism Regina brand.
And that tourism website is now live. As for the old one, those who rolled it out said the idea was to lean into and own the crude jokes that capitalize on how the city's name rhymes with vagina, a phrase that the Rolling Stones used when they visited the city in 2006.
Someone told me, Regina, it rhymes with fun.
It was plastered on hoodies as part of the campaign launched last month. Other slogans drew similar criticism, triggering apologies and international attention. No one has been fired or punished for the rebrand, and Tourism Regina's CEO, Tim Reed, who took responsibility for the campaign, remains on the job. Wayne Morski says there will be an independent third-party investigation into the name and how the campaign developed.
I think it's more important for us to have a quality review done and to find out how this happened so that we can learn from it and make sure it doesn't happen in the future. But as far as one person or any people, that's something we haven't talked about.
Morski wouldn't say how much the investigation could cost or how long it might take. He said the final report would be submitted to council and any action would be up to them. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
A group of seniors living with Parkinson's disease are fighting the condition in a unique way, non-contact boxing. They've taken up classes in Delta, which help them redevelop their agility and balance. Our reporter Maurice Cass and video producer John Paulo Mendoza went to one of the lessons.
And with the Parkinson's I have, this really makes a difference. You concentrate more when he calls a number or a pad. You listen to him, and then your mind right away goes 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It definitely works. When I leave here, I feel so much better.
Well, I was diagnosed about 5 years ago with Parkinson's, and I read in our local paper that CARM was running these classes for Parkinson's patients. So about 3 years ago I signed up. Keeps my mind working, and CARM keeps the class fun.
Well, I have a history of Parkinson's in my family. I know what their needs are individually. I just know that they derive a lot of benefit out of it, and they're extremely happy when they come, when they go, and to me that's everything, right? They're just a happy bunch of people to be here and challenge themselves mentally, physically.
I think it helps with the brain muscle stuff, muscle memory.
Boxing is really recommended for people with Parkinson's. So is dancing. However, it's a lot easier to get your husband to go boxing than to go dancing.
I've done a lot of dancing in my day.
I was a bodybuilder, a hobby bodybuilder, and I've lost a lot of my muscle tissue. And I know all the hits. I could probably make a few of them, but Parkinson's has stripped some of my muscle off of me quite a bit. I've never taken boxing before, and I like what it does for you. It actually works for Parkinson's people, you know, it really does work. Before you have it, you know, you might be uncoordinated with your hands and your fists and whatnot, but this teaches you the eye and hand coordination, and you get the confidence of knowing what you're doing with your hands. Because you don't, when you get Parkinson's, you gotta relearn everything. I don't think I'll ever quit. I think I'll just keep on going.
So as the sun set this evening over beautiful English Bay, Johanna will have your full forecast next.
When the producers of The X-Files put out a casting call, this is what happens. Thousands of people lined up outside of GM Place last night to be a part of the final episode shot in British Columbia. The show is headed south, and a lot of fans wanted to say goodbye in person.
How do you feel about the show moving to Los Angeles? Really disappointed. I won't be able to show up anymore. Watch them. I always like walking by the street and actually seeing them.
And I, you know, say goodbye to them from here. They've been here for quite a while, so it's very, very interesting. Like, you know, so I think it's exciting.
Do you have a favorite character?
Yeah, Dana Scully.
How many of you guys consider yourselves X-Filers?
The 12,000 extras were used as spectators at a chess game. Although the stars of the show weren't in this scene, they did make an appearance. They gave away prizes and answered a few questions.
What kind of music do you listen to, Dave? There's a Fox Rock.
Unfortunately, this is as close as any of the fans got to the cast. David Duchovny had to leave early for another shoot. Gillian Anderson beat a hasty retreat, unwilling to sign any autographs for the fans waiting outside. What was intended as a thank you for local support ended up leaving a few fans pretty dissatisfied.
What did they tell you?
They just said leave. They're like, it's packed, leave.
They wouldn't even be nice. They would just say, just leave, get out of here, stop causing a ruckus.
Yeah.
For Broadcast One, I'm Tracy Galbraith.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
The Surrey Board of Trade's Top 25 Under 25 Awards returns on May 3rd. Celebrate Surrey's role models and get your tickets today at businessinsurrey.com. And join CBC Vancouver's Gloria Makarenko at the annual Because Mothers Matter Awards on May 10th. Celebrate women's extraordinary achievements at this year's event. Learn more at mothersmattercentre.ca.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
And Johanna Wagstaffe is here for a look at the forecast. Joe, what an absolutely beautiful day to end the week on.
Yeah, Michelle, hopefully everyone got out to enjoy the sun today with that increasing cloud, heralding a change just in time for the weekend. That really has been our story weekends as of late. Let me show you the big picture on the satellite and radar. A big old Pacific system spinning off the coast. What else is new in spring 2023 for the West Coast? And yes, if you think it's felt cool across the South Coast these past few weeks, just looked at the numbers, and Vancouver, we're running about 3 degrees below our 1981 to 2010 average. So yeah, it's been a cool spring, and these low pressure systems aren't helping. They're bringing the rain to the coast. Here's a look at tomorrow's highs. So about where we hit today, just the 10-degree mark for Metro Vancouver. Seasonals are around 12, 13 for this time of the year. And then we get the rain in the picture, kind of moving into Metro Vancouver for the afternoon hours. So you might get by with a dry start. We get another pulse for Sunday. And notice the purple. This will bring fresh snow to the alpine levels with that cooler air in place. Looks like that low starts to break apart for Monday, so we may see some sunshine mixed in with the showers, but I've got to keep the showers through to early next week with that low just hanging off our coast. Now, we will see some sun for the interior. I know you had some good sunshine today in the Okanagan, Shuswap, Kootenays. Same story again tomorrow after you get through a slight risk of a morning shower. All right, this is probably also why it's felt a little on the cool side. We've all seen the news of the heat in the east, once again breaking record temperatures. Look at those numbers, feeling like 30 with the humidity in the lower Great Lakes. They will see wet snow for Monday, and they've got about the same high as we do on Monday, just 8. That is cool for us as well. So we'll see a cooler Sunday and Monday with that low pressure system dragging down that cool air. Sunshine, some sunshine for Tuesday and Wednesday, and Michelle, all eyes on the second of the week. That 15 looks pretty good.
Thanks, Joe. And that is your late news for Friday. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For news anytime, visit cbc.ca/BC. And your next local newscast is on Radio 1 tomorrow morning at 6:30. Have a good weekend and good night.